Okay, so we have been going on the last week or two about Isaiah shifting his prophetic message from the north to the south, and the reason that happened was because the north doesn't really exist anymore. Syria has come in, and over a 3-year period has just decimated the fighting men of the north. They have taken everybody else and split them up and displaced them into different cities, other cities that they have conquered. And in the process, by the same token, they have taken other conquered cities or areas and split them up and moved them, some of them, into where Israel used to be. So by doing that, they have taken away Israel's identity. They've taken away their familiarity, their confidence. And also, if you look at the underlying tone, the underlying attitude of the ancient Near East was that gods were in one place; they didn't move. And so, by placing captured people in the territory of another god, they didn't know how to act. Well, there was a message that was sent to not Mayor Shalahashbaz, sorry. I can't think of his name. Anyway, King of Assyria, saying that, hey, they're the people that you put in Israel aren't, they're not, they're revolting. Well, he did have the sense of mind, okay, well, let's see. Let's send a Jewish priest, one of the Hebrew priests, back to them. And so they've done that. And so things seem to have settled down. So the people that are living in the northern kingdom right now, who don't know Israel's God, are being taught about Israel's God, but at the same time, they're still doing some of the things that they did with their own gods. And so that is where the Samaritans end up coming into play later on down the line. There's a whole lot more mishmash as the Jews that do come out of exile start to intermarry with them. That's kind of what promulgates the Samaritan line. Okay, so that the exile is what started that all. Okay, but Isaiah, in the meantime, he shifted his focus to the south. Even though they're under a good king, that doesn't necessarily mean the people are good. And so he's giving this prophetic message that you've seen what's happened to your brothers in the north. Take heed, because this can and probably will happen to you too. But in the same token, he's also giving prophetic messages for the nations around them, just like every other prophet has done.
So Samaria, when it becomes a country, like in Jesus' time over there,
Well, they exist now.
The area that it is on, whatever you say that occupies, that's actually part of the northern kingdom.
Correct. Samaria was actually capital at this time.
Okay.
Before they were. So, and Ahab was the one who made that. At that, before that, the capital had moved around. Ahab.
He was very bad.
Ahab was bad, but he wasn't the worst. And that's what made, we think of Ahab being the worst. Oh no, there were plenty that were a whole lot worse than him.
And what you're talking about, there used to be some identity in being a real live, sure enough Israelite, but that was gone.
Well, nowadays the question now is there really a pure blood Jew?
Yeah, exactly.
Probably not. But who knows? Who knows? Is that really for us to determine? That's for God to work out.
I thought that too, but I was told Judaism is the religion, not a nationality.
Judaism is, but you've heard the term "I'm a Jew," where some people will say I'm a Jew and some people say I'm Jewish. There's a big difference between the two. So,
but what difference would it make if you're true Jew?
Well, it
has
to do with the retribution of God at the end times, both for Christians and for the Jewish people.
What God's generation?
Well, to be a Jew means that you descend from a line of Jews going all the way down there, and they're very big on that. So So you've got Jewish blood, or you've got Hebrew blood in you. To be Jewish just means you practice Judaism, and so you might not have any Jew blood in you at all.
Convert.
Correct.
Sammy Davis Jr.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, they're two, even though they worship the same way, kind of.
Depending.
Right, depending on the sect.
Then there's the Orthodox.
You've got the Orthodox, the Hasidic, you've got different the Zionists. Right, you've got different branches of Judaism, just like you do Islam, just like you do Christianity. There's three main branches of Christianity. You've got the Roman Catholic, we've got the Protestant movement, and then we've got the Orthodox, Eastern Orthodox. Yeah, so, okay, anyway, let's go on here, because I know that Arlen is really itching to find what scripture we're in. We put this on.
Second Kings.
No, I've got Second Kings on there to keep me
Oh.
figure out where I'm at. But we're gonna start off in Isaiah 14. If I'm correct, we're pretty much gonna stay in this till the end. We'll go into Proverbs a little bit. And that'll make sense here in a moment. So Isaiah chapter 14, verse 1. But the Lord will have compassion on Jacob. That would be the south. And will again choose Israel and will settle in their own land. And aliens will join them and attach themselves to the house of Jacob. I'm sorry, Jacob would be all of both north and south. Aliens will join them and attach themselves to the house of Jacob. I don't know what that means. Some people have taken that to mean that's the grafting on of the Gentiles onto the eternal tree. Some will think that refers to them coming out of exile, kind of more in a literal sense, and intermarrying and becoming part of the house of David. Anyway, and the nations will take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel will possess the nations as male and female slaves in the Lord's land. They will take captive those who were their captors and rule over those who oppress them. This is a prophetic message of the Jewish end times. Okay. They will be in charge. When the Lord has given you rest from your pain and turmoil and the hard service with which you were made to serve, you will take up this taunt against the king of Babylon. Now, this is one of the first times we hear about Babylon, because they're just coming to, they're just starting their reign of terror at this point. How the oppressor has ceased, how his insolence has ceased. The Lord has broken the staff of the wicked, the scepter of rulers that struck down the peoples in wrath with unceasing blows that ruled the nations in anger with unrelenting persecution. The whole earth is at rest and quiet. They break forth into singing. How can it be quiet? They break forth into singing. The cypresses exult over you, the cedars of Lebanon, saying, since you were laid low, no one comes to cut us down. This taunt was taken up around 605 BC. So, and interestingly, we hear about the cypresses and the cedars. Those are representative of the strength and power of those kingdoms north of it. Sheol beneath is stirred up to meet you when you come. It rouses the shades to greet you, all who were leaders of the earth. It raises from their thrones all who were kings of the nations. All of them will speak and say to you, you too have become as weak as we. You have become like us. Your pomp is brought down to Sheol. And the sound of your harps, remember, it's supposed to be quiet here. And the sound of your harps, maggots are the bed beneath you, and worms are your covering. How you are falling from heaven, O morning star, son of dawn, how you were cut down to the ground, you who laid the nations low. This is interesting. So the sound of the harps, O morning star, son of dawn. Many have taken this, depending on what translation you're reading, that O morning star. Some use the term Lucifer. That's the Latin word for morning star. And so they attribute this because it's a pronoun, and so they attribute this to what we know as Satan or Lucifer. But you've got to keep in mind who this prophecy is being told about. And at the time, you've got a lot of astronomical stuff going on. The Babylonians certainly knew about astronomy. And so Venus is believed to be what this is talking about. The last star of the night as the morning is dawning, and they're seeing this star rise in the east or set in the east or whatever it is. I can't. Anyway, so I just want to make evangelicals will take this and attribute this to being this is one of the Old Testament statements about Lucifer being cast from heaven. He was one of the harp players, how you can take things out of context a little bit. Okay. Not meaning that they have, I don't know. I'm not 100% certain either. So, but how we can interpret it in different ways depending on the context by which it's being stated. So if you read the whole thing around it.
You said astronomy. I was wondering at the onset of astrology.
Well, same astrology actually existed well before this.
Oh, really?
Because even Saul, when he was trying to, he went to talk with mediums and things like that. So the occult was very well in place by this point, including children. Okay, we'll move on. That's about Lucifer. You said to yourself, I will ascend to heaven, I will raise my throne above the stars of God. See how it plays into how evangelicals can sometimes think this is the falling of Lucifer. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will sit on the mount of assembly on the heights of Zaphon. I will ascend to the tops of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. But you were brought down to Sheol, to the depths of the pit, or the abyss. Those who see you will stare at you and ponder over you. Is this the man who made the earth tremble, who shook kingdoms, who made the world like a desert and overthrew its cities, who would not let his prisoners go home? Most scholars believe that whole statement isn't about Lucifer, but rather Nebuchadnezzar.
Same thing.
Mhm.
All the kings of the nations lie in glory, each in his own tomb. It's kind of interesting. Yeah, they lie in their glory in their tomb. So we're talking about that statement about who has lifted up this taunt about I will rise to make myself like the Most High. You notice it not above the Most High. There's a statement of being equal with God, not above God. So, but in First Peter, we get this statement that we are exalted through our humility, not our pride. That notice the juxtaposition. So, and of course, we also know, the last will be first, the first shall be last. That kind of.
All the Egyptian kings were supposed to be gods. The
Yeah,
people believe.
And so were all the Caesars. There are inscriptions on Roman tablets about Caesars being son of God. But you were cast out away from your grave like loathsome carrion. That's an interesting word, carrion, because in some translations it says branch, like a loathsome branch. And if we take that kind of gives a whole other connotation when we think about Isaiah just a few chapters before, talking about the branch of Jesse, or the stump of Jesse, the branch that that comes out of that being. So here, so in an opposite view of that, like loathsome, burned, dead branches, like a dead branch. Clothed with the dead, those pierced by the sword, who go down to the stones of the pit like a corpse trampled underfoot. You will not be joined with them in burial because you have destroyed your land. Destroyed, that word there is abaddon. That comes from the same word, abaddon, destroyer. You have killed your people. May the descendants of evildoers nevermore be named. Prepare a place of slaughter for his sons because of the guilt of their father. Let them never rise to possess the earth or cover the face of the world with sins. So just that statement alone indicates that it's a human thing rather than a supernatural thing. I will rise up against them, says the Lord of hosts, and will cut off from Babylon name and remnant, offspring and posterity, says the Lord. So when he talks about a remnant of Israel coming back, that means that they're not utterly destroyed, but with Babylon, their name and remnant are going to be destroyed. So, and I will make it a possession of the screech owl and pools of water, and I will sweep it with the broom of destruction, says the Lord of hosts. There's that word again, destruction. The Lord of hosts has sworn, as I have designed, so shall it be, and as I have planned, so shall it come to pass. I will break the Assyrian in my land, and on my mountains trample him underfoot. His yoke shall be removed from them, and his burden from their shoulders. This is the plan that is planned concerning the whole earth. And this is the hand that is stretched out over all the nations. For the Lord of hosts has planned, and who will annul it? His hand is stretched out, and who will turn it back? In the year that King Ahaz died, this oracle came. Do not rejoice, all you Philistines, that the rod that struck you is broken. For from the root of the snake will come forth an adder, and its fruit will be a flying, fiery serpent. You see where some of the imagery comes from. In my pastures, the poor will graze and the needy lie down in safety, but I will make your root die of famine, and your remnant I will kill. Wail, O gate, cry, O city, melt in fear, O Philistia, all of you. So this is specifically about the Philistines. For smoke comes out of the north, and there is no straggler in its ranks. What will one answer the messengers of the nation? The Lord has founded Zion, and the needy among his people will find refuge in her. So, yeah, so that's the answer to the question. What will one answer the messengers of the nation? The Lord has founded Zion, needy among the people will find refuge in her. Now on to chapter 15. An oracle concerning Moab. So now Isaiah is shifting from Philistia to Moab. Because Ar is laid waste in a night, Moab is undone. Because Kir is laid waste in the night, Moab is undone. Daughter Dibon has gone up to the high places to weep over Nebo and over Medeba, and Moab wails. Every head is shaved, every beard is shorn. In the streets they bind on sackcloth. On the housetops and in the squares, everyone wails and melts in tears. Heshbon and Elealeh. Yeah, it's something like God is God kind of thing. So kind of like Elijah, but just a different version. Their voices are heard as far as Jahaz. Therefore, the loins of Moab quiver, his soul trembles. My heart cries out for Moab. His fugitives flee to Zoar, to Eglah Shalishiyah. For the ascent of Levith, they go up weeping. On the road to Horonaim, they raise a cry of destruction. The waters of Nimrim are a desolation. The grass is withered. The new growth fails. Vegetation is no more. So in the midst of all this, we hear this, in the midst of this prophecy about Moab, Isaiah starts to cry a little bit over Moab. Now, you notice Moab isn't being accused of being mean to Israel or anything at this point. That's because their sin came when the Israelites were leaving Egypt, hundreds of years prior. Moab is a son of Lot and his daughter. That's where the name comes from. So if y'all remember the story, yes, after they fled Sodom and Gomorrah, that's what that S&G means. They go up to Zoar, and while they're in Zoar, Lot isn't remarrying or anything. Remember, his wife is turning to pillar of salt. Well, his daughters are thinking, man, we can't, all of our kinsmen are dead. We're not finding husbands here. Who's going to carry on the family line? We've got to have kids. So they get their father drunk, and each of them sleeps with him, and each of them conceives. Well, we don't know the names of the daughters. We don't know which one it was, but one of them gave birth to this kid Moab. And Moab would grow up and would found his own city. Okay. Moab would, when Israel was leaving Egypt, Moab would not let the people of Israel pass through. Therefore, the Israelites had to go around. That's extending that trip in out the desert, which was a contributor of their 40-year journey.
Fundamentalists ever read the Bible, they found it.
Well, the Bible has been banned several times in history. Therefore, the abundance they have gained and what they have laid up, they carry away over the Wadi of the Willows. For a cry has gone around the land of Moab. The wailing reaches to Eglaim. The wailing reaches to Beer Elim. For the waters of Dibon are full of blood. Yet I will bring upon Dibon even more, a lion for those of Moab who escape, for the remnant of the land. On to chapter 16. Send lambs to the ruler of the land. From Selah by way of the desert to the mount of daughter Zion, like fluttering birds, like scattering nestlings, so are the daughters of Moab and the hordes of Arnon. Give counsel, grant justice. Make your shade like night at the height of noon. Hide the outcasts. Do not betray the fugitives. Let the outcasts of Moab settle among you. Oh, kind of a reversal there. Be a refuge to them from the destroyer. So Moab would not allow Israel to seek refuge there. But what Isaiah is preaching is that let the outcasts of Moab settle on you. A reversal of fortune there. When the oppressor is no more and destruction has ceased and marauders have vanished from the land, then a throne shall be established in steadfast love, the tent of David, and on it shall sit in faithfulness a ruler who seeks justice and is swift to do what is right. You know, that's supposed to be a message of hope, but I personally am a little afraid of a ruler who seeks justice and is swift to do what is right, because that means things are going to happen fast.
And they're swinging.
And they may not be very nice to me. We have heard of the pride of Moab, how proud he is, of his arrogance, his pride, and his insolence. His boasts are false. Therefore, let Moab wail. Let everyone wail for Moab. Mourn, utterly stricken, for the raisin cakes of Kirhus.
What?
What did Moab do?
They did not offer refuge or assistance to Israel when they were leaving Egypt on the Exodus.
Oh, it did not.
Moab didn't.
Oh, he's a bad.
So they're guilty of doing nothing. That
He's a bad guy.
they didn't do something bad. They didn't do something good.
Sins of omission.
Right. For the fields of Heshbon languish, and the vines of Sibmah, whose clusters once made drunk the lords of the nations, reached to Jazer and strayed to the desert. Their shoots once spread abroad and crossed over the sea. Therefore I weep as Jazer weeps for the vines of Sibmah. I drench you with my tears, O Heshbon and Elealah. Did I? No, that's different. For the shout over your fruit harvest, and your grain harvest has ceased. Joy and gladness are taken away from the fruitful field, and in the vineyards no exultation is heard, no shouts are raised, no treader treads out wine in the presses. The vintage shout is hushed. Therefore my heart moans like a harp for Moab, and my very soul for Kirhus. Even Isaiah is crying for those that are being judged.
Isn't it interesting though? I mean, all this about Moab and then the story of Ruth, you know, she
Mhm.
actually is named in the line,
Mhm.
the Jewish line, you know? I mean, that's kind of interesting, isn't it?
Well, I'll be preaching on Ruth again in the next couple weeks. Kind of from a different kind of thing, but not as detailed, but correct. They went to Moab to escape drought that was happening here.
Yeah. But she was a Moabitess,
Correct.
you know, and here she
God has a
is
sense
in
of
the
humor.
line.
Mhm.
Yeah, so-
When Moab presents himself, when he wearies himself upon the high place, when he comes to his sanctuary to pray, he will not prevail. This was the word that the Lord spoke concerning Moab in the past. That happened in 715 BCE. Or when we believe when this prophecy came to pass, when Moab ceased to really exist, was around 715 BCE due to the Assyrians. But now the Lord says, in 3 years, like the years of a hired work, worker, the glory of Moab will be brought into contempt. In spite of all its great multitude, and those who survive will be very few and feeble. So even Moab has a remnant. Philistia did not, or who was it? I get, well, it's kind of different. It said it was going to attack. Oh, that was Babylon. Never mind. Babylon. So yeah, Moab. So on to Proverbs 25. Arlen. We're gonna get Proverbs the rest of the day.
Which way am I going?
You're going to the left. These are, and the reason we're putting more Proverbs here, these are other Proverbs of Solomon that the officials of King Hezekiah of Judah copied. So 270 years later. Okay. Whether they were known before this or not, we don't know, but I trust scripture that Hezekiah was responsible for making these known to me. It is the glory of God to conceal things, but the glory of kings is to search things out. Like the heavens for height, like the earth for depth. So the mind of kings is unsearchable. Take away the dross from the silver, and the smith has material for a vessel. So of course. Take away the wicked from the presence of the king, and his thrones will be established in righteousness. So they're making a comparison there. Take away the dross from the silver, take away the wicked from the presence of the king, and you'll end up with something you can work with. Do not put yourself forward in the king's presence or stand in the place of the great, for it is better to be told, come up here, than to be put lower in the presence of the noble. Y'all remember that story from Luke 14? Invited, don't when you're invited to a party, don't go to the head of the table. For fear that the host will say, oh no, that's not your seat. You're seated way down here. But rather take the least seat and you might get moved up, and that'll be to your glory. Yeah, same concept. It's Old Testament version of that. What your eyes have seen, do not hastily bring into court. For what will you do in the end when your neighbor puts you to shame? That comes from Luke 12. Argue your case with your neighbor directly, and do not disclose another secret, or else someone who hears you will bring shame upon you, and your ill repute will have no end. A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in a setting of silver.
Love that verse.
Like a gold ring or an ornament of gold is a wise rebuke to a listening ear. Like the cold of snow in the time of harvest, faithful messengers to those who send them. It's funny that they talk about cold of snow in a time of harvest. They're not talking about the natural evil that exists if a blight or something, naturally occurring affects the crops. They're talking about refreshment. Like the cold, like a cool breeze that comes
This morning.
when you're working in the hot sun. That's what that is relating to. They refresh the spirit of their masters. Like clouds and wind without rain is one who boasts of a gift never given. Look what I gave to the church. Look what I did. Of course, we got Acts 5. That's Ananias and Sapphira. And then Jude 12. That's a verse, not a chapter. Jude only has one chapter. Talks about making something bigger than what it really is, or boasting about it. With patience, a ruler may be persuaded, and a soft tongue can break bones. Has to do with persistence. If you have found honey, eat only enough for you, lest having too much, you vomit it up. True story. Have y'all heard my story about me and pickles? When I was a kid, probably about 8 or 9 years old, I went to the grocery store with my mother. And one of the, pickles aren't that expensive. They weren't thin either, but I insisted on getting my own jar of pickles. And before we got home with the groceries, I had eaten that whole jar.
Sweet or dill?
These would have been dill. And no sooner have we gotten the door open, and I didn't have that jar of pickles in me anymore. I remember every detail of that day. She showed compassion, but it's kind of like, well, you'll learn not to eat all of them.
It's like having somebody salt water to make them throw.
Let your foot be seldom in your neighbor's house, lest the neighbor become weary of you and hate you. You're welcome, guys. Like a war club, a sword or a sharp arrow is one who bears false witness against a neighbor. Hmm. Like a bad tooth or a lame foot is trust in a faithless person in time of trouble. Like vinegar on a wound is one who sings songs to a heavy heart. Like a moth in clothing or a worm in wood, sorrow gnaws at the human heart. Basically, it sounds like really vinegar on a wound is one who sings, it's like one who sings songs to a heavy heart. It seems like that would be opposite, but what it is it is either it can either mean not being sincere with your thoughts on someone who is grieving, or it is really not thinking about what you're saying. We get certain statements, you go to a wedding or not a wedding, you go to a funeral, and this happened to me. I went to a funeral, and the sister of the girl who had died was there. And the first thing I said to you, how are you? Because that's just a statement I ask anybody else. It was just a normal, but she, her reaction was, well, not real good. So just be careful what you say, is what that's saying. You may mean well, but angel or God, heaven needed another angel. Really? So, what about me? I needed this person. So anyway, if your enemies are hungry, give them bread to eat, and if they are thirsty, give them water to drink. That comes from Matthew 5 and Romans 12. For you will heap coals of fire on their heads, and the Lord will reward you. Basically, you do that, and they won't, they can't be really angry at you because they're obligated to you because of hospitality. They've got to return the favor, otherwise they look like jerks. The north wind produces rain, and a backbiting tongue angry looks. It is better to live in a corner.
Back a minute.
Yep.
So Paul, when he was saying that, he was just referring back to this, if you'd probably learned this.
As
from
as Pharisee,
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, the north wind produces rain, and a backbiting tongue angry looks. It is better to live in a corner of the housetop than in a house shared with a contentious wife. Why was Arlen the only one to laugh at that?
Smile.
I will just say that it's it was a patriarchal society. And remember, most of the Proverbs were Solomon he was giving lessons to his son. So, okay. Well, it makes you wonder which one of the 300 wives that Solomon had that he was talking about, or 700 concubines or porcupines or whatever.
Porcupine.
Like cold water to a thirsty soul, so is good news from a far country. You think back to the Old West and the stagecoach bringing mail that may have left its original place several months before, and you're finally getting the letter, and it's good news. Hey, such and such had a baby, and now the baby's like 3 months old. By the time anyway, that's kind of what that. Like a muddied spring or a polluted fountain, the righteous should give way before the wicked. So it kind of speaks against backing down from something that's just not right. So, it is not good to eat much honey or to seek honor on top of honor. Like a city breached without walls is one who lacks self-control. Like snow in summer or rain in harvest, so honor is not fitting for a fool. Like a sparrow in its flitting, like a swallow in its flying, an undeserved curse goes nowhere. That's what you can use to somebody who says something bad to you. A whip for the horse, a bridle for the donkey, and a rod for the back of fools. Think about that for a minute. Do not answer fools according to their folly, lest you be a fool yourself. Now, okay, I want to read that again, and then I'm going to read it again, but then I'm going to go straight on to the next one. Okay, I want you to see something there. Do not answer fools according to their folly, lest you be a fool yourself. Answer fools according to their folly, lest they be wise in their own knowledge.
Don't answer, but answer.
It seems to be saying the exact opposite thing. What it's saying is, uh, do not answer fools according to their folly, lest you be a fool yourself, unless you can answer fools according to folly, where they're looking wise in their own lives, okay? Or where they understand their folly. So be cognizant of what you're saying to the fools. It is like cutting off one's foot and drinking down violence to send a message by a fool. The legs of a lame person hang limp, so does a proverb in the mouth of a fool. If y'all remember the TV show Home Improvement,
Yeah.
Tim, he would go out, looking for advice, and go out to the fence, and Wilson was standing there over the fence and would give him this proverb, ancient Eastern proverb or whatever. And Tim would go back in the house and just completely mess it up, to when he's talking to Jill or, think of that when you read this. It is like binding a stone in a sling to give honor to a fool. Binding a stone in a sling, you weren't to bind the stone, it won't throw.
It comes back ditching.
Yeah, it's more like a bolo, then. Like a thorn bush brandished by the hand of a drunkard. It's a proverb in the mouth. Like an archer who wounds everybody is one who hires a passing fool or drunkard. Like an archer who wounds everybody. Yeah. I just remember some of my Girl Scouts out on the archery range. And, what are you shooting at? Like a dog that returns to its vomit is a fool who reverts to his folly.
Yeah.
That's actually repeated in 2 Peter chapter 2. Do you see people wise in their own eyes? There is more hope for fools than for them. So we've had all these bad things said about fools here, and then all of a sudden, wise people are even worse. People who are wise in their own eyes are even worse.
There is hope.
And now we get the lazy person says there is a lion in the road. There is a lion in the streets. Yeah, the lazy. As a door turns on its hinges, so does a lazy person in bed. It basically means, it's meant to, a door is only as good as the person who's opening and closing it. But it takes somebody to open and close it. You can't just lay in your bed and not do anything. Right. Doesn't do it on its own. The lazy, unless it's an automatic thing, but somebody's doing something to make it. The lazy person buries a hand in the dish and is too tired to bring it back to the mouth. The lazy person, I told you, the Bible is full of humor. The lazy person is wiser in self-esteem than 7 who can answer discreetly.
Why 7?
7, you notice it's underlined. 7 is what in grammatry, which is Hebrew numerals.
Perfect.
It's perfect. It's God's perfect number. So a lazy person is wiser in self-esteem than everyone who can answer discreetly. Like someone who takes a passing dog by the ears is one who meddles in the quarrel of another. The word meddles there literally means gets excited. They look forward. They will edge somebody on in an argument. Like a maniac who shoots deadly firebrands and arrows, so is one who deceives a neighbor and says, "I'm only joking." I'm gonna have to answer for that one probably.
Just kidding.
Yeah. For lack of wood, the fire goes out, and where there is no whisperer, quarreling ceases. James 3 talks about that. As charcoal is to hot embers and wood to fire, so is a quarrelsome person for kindling strife. The words of a whisperer, whenever we see the word whisperer, it's a gossiper. Okay? The words of a whisperer are like delicious morsels. They go down into the inner parts of the body. You can't not hear what a gossiper says. It either, number one, it gives you more insight as to the person saying it, or it makes you wonder about the person they're talking about. Okay? Like the glazed covering of an earthen vessel are smooth lips with an evil heart. An enemy we're running out of time here. An enemy dissembles in speaking ruin while harboring deceit within. When an enemy speaks graciously, do not believe it. For there are 7 abominations concealed within. Though hatred is covered with guile, the enemy's wickedness will be exposed in the assembly. Whoever digs a pit will fall into it, and a stone will come back on the one who starts it rolling. A lying tongue hates its victims, and a flattering mouth works ruin. Do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what a day may bring. James 4. Let another praise you and not your own mouth, a stranger and not your own lips. This is actually a German statement. I say that the Germans really they have a statement that goes, Eigenlob stinkt, Fremdeslob hinkt, Fremdeslob klingt. Okay? Which means self-praise stinks, friends praise limps, and strangers praise rings. Okay.
Okay.
A stone is heavy and sand is weighty, but a fool's provocation is heavier than metal. Wrath is cruel, anger is overwhelming, but who is able to stand before jealousy? Better is open rebuke than hidden love. That's a tough one. Well meant are the wounds of a friend. Well meant are the wounds a friend inflicts, but profuse are the kisses of an enemy. That's kind of a tough one to swallow too, but it means that if you are rebuking for the case of righteousness, it's better to do that and hurt a friend's feelings by pointing out the wrong than it is to go to someone and just tell them, "Oh, you're right. You're absolutely right." We talk about, a friend is a friend who will support you in whatever. Well, I'll tell you what, and I'm only going to jail for you if it's right, if it's a righteous thing. If you stole something and you want me to stick up for you in court, I'm not going to do that. You stole something. So anyway, it would be hypocritical of me to say, well, they're a good person. I could honestly say I've never known them to do that before, but that really ain't helping their case. The sated appetite spurns honey, but to a ravenous appetite, even the bitter is. Like a bird that strays from its nest is one who strays from home. Well, that's just obvious. Perfume and incense make the heart glad, but the soul is torn by trouble. Do not forsake your friend and the friend of your parent. Do not go to the house of your kindred in the day of your calamity. Better is a neighbor who is nearby than kindred who are far away. This has to do with, think of the context. I've got it underneath there. Think of the context of Israel and Judah at the time they're maybe hearing this. They had just gone to Egypt seeking help against Assyria, and it backfired on them. But that's what they're probably reading now. But you got to remember when it was written too. It was written back during Solomon's time, and Solomon was into making all these agreements. If our brothers, if our blood brothers around us aren't helping us, maybe we can go to. Let me say it this way. If y'all read 1984, George Orwell, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Okay. That's what that's saying. Okay. Be wise, my child, and make my heart glad, so that I may answer whoever reproaches. The clever see danger and hide, but the simple go on and suffer for it. Take the garment of one who has given surety for a stranger, seize the pledge given as surety for foreigner. This is not a statement against interest. Usury was acceptable, but not with family. Okay, that was the difference. And normally it was like a 30% interest.
Wow.
Okay. Whoever blesses a neighbor with a loud voice rising early in the morning will be counted as cursing. It's kind of like drawing attention to yourself by praising your neighbor. I'm more important than my neighbors. Yeah. A continually dripping on a rainy day and a contentious wife or a light. The continual dripping on a rainy day refers to a leaky roof. To restrain her is to restrain the wind or to grasp oil in the right hand. Iron sharpens iron and one person sharpens the wits of another. That's one of mine. Anyone who tends a fig tree will eat its fruit, and anyone who takes care of a master will be honored. It's kind of a neat analogy or comparison. Just as water reflects the face, so one human heart reflects another.
Very interesting.
Did I skip that? We're almost done here. Sheol and Abaddon, there's that word again, are never satisfied. Human eyes are never satisfied. The crucible is for silver and the furnace is for gold. So a person is tested by being praised. Crush a fool in a mortar with a pestle, along with crushed grain, but the folly will not be driven out. Think of incarceration versus rehabilitation. Are you punishing people to help them get better, or are you just punishing them to punish them? Okay. Know well the condition of your flocks and give attention to your for riches do not last forever, nor a crown for all generations. When the grass is gone and new growth appears, and the herbage of the mountains is gathered, the lambs will provide your clothing, and the goats the price of the field. And there will be enough goat's milk for your food, for the food of your household, and nourishment for your female servants. Okay. I know that was a long one today. I talked a lot. So next week, we're going to continue on with a little bit of the Proverbs, further life sayings of Solomon. Some sayings of Agur, which, so we're still in Proverbs at that point, this guy named Agur. We know nothing of Agur other than the Proverbs that was there. Then we get this thing called the teaching of King Lemuel's mother. We know nothing of King Lemuel, unless he was a king of a particular area rather than a nation. And then Ode to a Woman of Strength. That's how it finishes up. And that's from King Lemuel's mother, teaching him about the strength of a woman. And then we're back into Isaiah, an oracle concerning Cush. And we're going to learn some interesting things about Cush.
Who's Kush?
Well, you'll find out next week.
Oh.
Cush is the conglomeration of four African nations. One of them is Egypt. Mostly when we hear Cush, we think Ethiopia. But so Ethiopia would be the main contingent there, but it would also include parts of Egypt, Somalia, and Sudan.
They're doing a whole bunch of archaeological things in Kush, and then I'm discovering lots and lots of things about
Very
that nation.
Cush,
Pyramids, yeah.
I won't talk about this next week, but Cush is where Ham, the son of
And-
Noah,
Oh, no.
Yeah,
settled.
because you hear about Kush back
Mhm.
in the Bible.
And remember, Ham was the one that was cursed for looking at Noah's nakedness. Okay. All right, let me close this here.
Okay.